Ladies and gentlemen, I am Yourk, the game is World of Warships, and this is the New York. New York, she's a hell of a ship. She's the Tier 5 American battleship. She is the first US battleship to mount 14-inch guns, because 12 inches just wasn't enough somehow. 356mm 45 caliber in length. And she has a significant range advantage over her predecessor, the Wyoming, the Tier 4, with her measly 10 to 12 inch guns. Oh god. Caps out at 12.1 kilometers. The New York has an ace up her sleeve. Baseline fire control starts at about 14 kilometers. You upgrade to the Mark 5 Mod 2, it goes up to about 15-16 kilometers. Bad enough if you're in a lower tier ship. Then she has the ace up her sleeve. Tier 5, you get this little baby. Gunfire Control Modification 1. 16% to main battery firing range. The end consequence is that fully uprated, the New York's main guns, and bear in mind, it's got 10 14-inch guns, 140 inches of pure American freedom, have a maximum potential range of 18.1 kilometers on a spread of 241 meters, which is pretty sodding lousy if you're trying to hit a destroyer. But if you're up against a battleship, then, well, you've got a reasonable chance at least one round of a salvo will hit, and at that kind of range you're pretty much guaranteed plunging fire into the decks, and frankly, coming under fire from 18 kilometers does tend to rustle even a carrier's jimmies. He's reckoning on you having to get within 10 kilometers of him. If he's a Jap carrier, well, he's a few knots faster. Even the early Hoshos make 25 knots, and a New York, well, she's not so great. Basic propulsion, 27,000 horsepower, gets you to 18.7 knots, and if you tweak the turbines up to 28.1, you get 21.4 knots standard American fleet speed. In fact, this is the same as the Wyoming. 20.9, I tell a lie, the New York's marginally faster, and the South Carolina, well, we don't talk about the South Carolina. The New Mexico, however, No, they didn't upgrade the engines. 21.4 knots again, despite having extra 10,000 shaft horsepower to work with. And finally, when you get to the Colorado, nope, still 21.4 knots. And the North Carolina, tell me we get some bigger engines. Yay! 27.9 knots. At a tier where the cruisers and the destroyers have been running around at 35 knots for the last, 3 tiers? Maybe more? What can the Kamikaze do? Yeah, quite. American battleships, boys and girls, they're really not the nippiest ships ever built. But they don't need to be, not with that much firepower and that much of a reach on them. 18 kilometers. If you can see a New York, she's got you in range. It's that simple. Get ready for the big old artillery. Hello. Secondary armament. On the A hull, it's early American vintage 16 secondary gun turrets. Unfortunately, she's got sod all by the way of anti-air firepower. Upgrade to the B hull and you lose most of the secondary guns. You can actually see the indentations in the hull where they sealed over the ports, even astern and amidships. So you weaken your secondary gun batteries, but hey, by the time anything is that close, you've got other problems to think about. And what you get instead are 6 127mm guns, firing just under 9 rounds a minute, 1800 damage a time. So basically destroyer-grade guns, and well, that's what they're there for. Killing destroyers, pity you only get 3 of them aside. On the upside, the ACAC got significantly improved. Core of the defense is 10 3-inch guns, 76.2mm, and for some reason the hull is showing me broad hull. Come on, there's an AA gun round here somewhere. No, that's a lifeboat. So just give me the hull. There we are. Yeah, you can see it rather more clear here. The veritable hedgehog of anti-air guns laid along. So you have a grand total of 10 76.2mm guns aiming at 2 kilometers, 20 damage per second. To back them up, you have got 4 dual 40mm Bofors, 3.5 kilometers, 36 damage per second, and your last ditch is at 2.1 kilometers with 8 20mm Oerlikon autocannon. In other words, any aircraft trying to get within range of a New York is gonna suffer. particularly if you manage to get the gun crews to focus their fire. It's not going to stop a full squadron of torpedo bombers, of course, but hey, you're going to dent a few, and even one less torpedo in the spread's a good thing to have. Still no aircraft, sadly. The New York isn't fitted for a spotter. That comes in at later tiers, but hey-ho, she's pretty capable on paper, except for that awful, awful, awful 20-knot top speed. And concealment, well, for God's sakes, it's a battleship. What do you expect? 16 kilometers on the surface, 10 from the air. And maneuverability is no better. 600-meter turning circle radius, but rudder shift time, 12.5 seconds. Well, it could be worse, I suppose. Right, so enough talking, I think. Battle. Let's go kill something. After all, that's what you're here for. Watching me kill, or more likely get horrifically blown up by torpedoes. Don't laugh, it happens. The Kawachi in particular, oh my god. How anyone takes that ship seriously, I do not know, especially if it's not top tier. Anyhow, we've got a game, let's see what it's throwing at us. Okay, welcome to Hotspot, and oh my god, this hurts already. They've got one Cleveland aside. We've got tier 7 destroyers, tier 6 destroyers. They've got 3 Fuzos and a New Mexico. We've got 2 New Yorks, a Fuso, New Mexico. We're just about even on carriers, tier 6 aside. And, well, oh dear. This could get interesting. So it's mostly going to be about the cruisers. Okay. All ahead 3/4 start. I'm going to stay on high X for the moment. Bring the guns round to port. Fleet's in 2 elements. The enemy likewise is in 2 elements. They are in the opposite corners here. One down southwest, one up northeast. They are going to hit B about the same time that we hit A. And we're going for B. So, through into A, then track south to B. We'll pick up the enemy fleet on the port side. And frankly, a whole ton depends on where their battleships are, which fleet division their carrier ended up in, and whether we can nail those 2 destroyers. Yes, AP would be a good thing against their battleships, but bear in mind that if I'm aiming at a cruiser like, well, a Cleveland or a Miyoko, then they're relatively lightly armoured. There's a good chance if I fire 14-inch armour piercing at those guys, I'm going to over-penetrate and go right out the other side doing minimal damage. So, we will fire the first volley as high X. There's an enemy destroyer down in B, triggering the cap. We're about to start the same. Come up to all ahead full. And in the meantime, we need to hope that we get some clear shots. Okay, initial enemy fleet contact at sea as well, but they're going to have a lot of cover from the archipelago there. So, we're into A. Adjust course to just graze us around this island here.
The enemy team has taken the lead.
The problem is that while I've got my guns put, it's going to take me a long time to switch them round to starboard, so I'll need to start that turn very, very early. New Mexico's coming in, and we have a detection. That means an enemy destroyer at 16 kilometers, which is not a good sign. Probably around about over here. He'll be screening, of course, so luckily the Fuso and the Miyoko are both targeting South Group. There go the dive bombers, so their carrier's likely south as well. Okay. What have we got? So far, no sign of their cruisers, no sign of their destroyers. I tell a lie, there's their Cleveland. So you know what? Let's see if we can wake him up a little. He'll be doing about 30 knots, so let's lay on little over 10. Guns are set. This is entirely speculative. Rounds out. Load armor piercing. Let's see if that goes. So I've probably aimed way too short. And I've got my line. And line's pretty good. Rounds coming down. But missed short. Misjudged the range. Still, that's served him notice that he's getting a little too close. Main guns are now reloading for armor piercing. And here comes the New Mexico. He's got even more range, of course, but he's misjudged his range as well. scatter on battleship rounds at this range is utterly abysmal. Unfortunately, he can start firing us, and, well, there's not going to be much I can do about it for the moment. He's got a good 3 kilometers range. Much like me, I suspect he's got all his range upgrades installed. Meanwhile, we're coming around onto the southern group, so right now I need to steer a little port to get some room, and then I need to start switching the gun turrets around, which is going to take about 30 seconds. So free the camera for a second, come out of point A. New Mexico is temporarily out of the fight, and it looks like the torpedo bombers just had their wicked way with him. Speaking of which, enemy fighters got a little too close there, picked up some flak. They lost one, but that's not really something they're going to care about. Right, lay on to that Fuso. Numbers 1 and 2 turrets are round. He's coming about. Lay on for about 10 notches. That is not a mill scale, by the way, as much as I'd love it to be. You can see the scatter there. Absolutely appalling, but one solid hit. 1,000 damage. Not great. However, as Jingles keeps saying, you hit the targets you can kill for preference. After turrets are coming around, we'll have another bearing on this Fuso. Well, we had a bearing on the Fuso, now we have a bearing on the floating pile of matchwood that was the Fuso. And we also have a destroyer. Wrong ammo type loaded for him. So let's target this Atlanta instead. And guns up, rounds out. Let's see if that's enough to cause him an embarrassment of riches. Rounds in flight. I've way overestimated. Maybe overestimated the range as well. Okay. Reload high X. 33 seconds. Hopefully, by the time it's done, that Mutsuki will have stuck his head round. We do need to hold our distance, however, because otherwise it's going to be torpedo time. And there we go. And right now, we need to come hard to starboard right. Goddamn now. Remember, torpedoes depend on two things. Constant course and constant speed from the target. So if, as I've done here, you cut down to half throttle, you effectively wreck both variables when you start your turn. Guns have reloaded. Batteries are pointing approximately the right direction. Come back up to full engine power. Get the speed we lost. And wait for that Mutsuki to stick his head out again. Except we now have a new problem. Rounds came in from forwards. Right, so their northern groups coming on us courtesy of that Fuso. Well, you know, we are in range of that carrier, who is pegging it in the other direction, full speed. So let's give him about, again, 10 notches. Rounds out. Extreme range fire, completely speculative, and I don't expect to hit a damn thing. But we had high X in the breach, so who cares? Rounds still in flight. Let's see what happens. Strike! No deck fire, sadly, but that was enough to give him a bit of a wake-up call. Next target, Miyoko-class cruiser. I still don't see that Mutsuki. Where the hell's he got to? Because as long as he's lurking, we are going to have Jap torpedoes in the water, and those things are nasty. Could be worse, could be the Type 92s, but Miyoko-class lay on about 10 mils from the bow. Have I wildly overestimated at 12 kilometers? Yes, well, maybe, no, perhaps. Just a little. Okay, give him 6 or 7. No, that's 7.5. And never mind, because he's turning. Fine, so that messes up my firing solution. Okay, never mind, he's turned back on again. Rounds are coming up, 5 seconds. Check our own Miyoko's not going to blunder into my fire lane. Lay for 7.5. Come on, guns up. And rounds out. Shot grouping looks good. Line looks good. Lead looks good. Dispersion, come on. Strike, 1 hit, couple of incapacitations, and target. Well, he was struck, but he's just... Actually, no, he hasn't blown his damage control. He's still burning. Okay, has he got that on cooldown? Well, I don't know what we incapacitated, but it very clearly wasn't his engine spaces. Fine, reload again, then we'll switch to armor piercing and start knocking some holes in him. Okay, 2 seconds. Again, lay on for about 7.5. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Actually, no, we can outrun these guys. All ahead. Harder port this time. And while we're at it, we're going to have a minuscule shot. Don't really expect to hit the destroyer there, but if we're careful here, I can probably avoid the worst of those torpedoes. Crud. He didn't just have one spread in the water, did he? Okay. All ahead. We're gonna eat one. Maybe. Yeah, we are gonna eat one. Fine. Fix that flooding. Then back hard, back hard, back hard. Because the moment he sees this, yeah, he anticipated us running aground to avoid the torps. Fine. Range on. Guns traversing. Again, lay for about 7.5. Fine, I'll just give him the after batteries at this point. And we're burning. Nothing I can do about that at the moment. We're only burning at one point, however, so where the hell did my rounds go? Misstaffed. Fine, give him 10 mils of lead this time. And rudder hard round to port to get the forward turrets engaged. Still burning, doesn't really matter at this stage. Not much we can do about it anyway. Not while he's knocking us to pieces with high X. And he is now clear. Fine. Full ahead. We need to link up with the other battleships, because right now I've got dive bombers coming in. And that damn Miyoko's guns are getting way too accurate for my taste. And now we've got dive bombers as well. Oh boy. This is bad. Luckily, they can't aim. However, we're now burning in 2 places. Which is even worse. Come on, come on, come on. 58 seconds. The fire's going to burn out before I can do anything about it. And there we are. First fire's burned out. Second fire is going to go for another 35 seconds. No shot on the Fuso for another 15 seconds or so. Need to hook up with the rest of it. Again, we've got visual on that destroyer, but wrong ammo type in the breach. I will over-penetrate. So, lay on range. He is steaming astern. Guns away. He fired about the same moment. Switch to high X into the breach. Let's see where this fall of shot goes. Strike and a citadel penetration. So that knocked him up good and proper. Served notice. Okay, for the moment though, we're actually going to pull away from the remainder of these guys, although that's going to be tricky since they've got visual contact themselves. Remember, 16-kilometer detection. I have, however, got just another few seconds until my repair ability come back. Get that fire out, or I'm going to burn down and get this going. Give the Fuso as small a target as we can present. And then realise the goddamn New Mexico's shooting at me as well. Actually, no, maintain harder port, or we're going to run aground, and that really will be the end. Come on, harder port, harder port, harder port. Maintain, maintain, maintain. 694 each, despite the fact that I've contributed sod all, and we just kissed the coast, but we are undetected at the moment. Back up to 8,500 health. Could be much worse, but it's going to be several minutes now before I can re-engage. So let's put armor piercing into the breach, because next mark's going to be that New Mexico, if there's anything left of it by the time the Farragut and the other New York have finished. Not my greatest performance ever. Let's keep moving. All ahead full. Crawl up to speed. That Miyoko... No shot at the moment. Once we clear this island, perhaps. Farragut's just about holding contact with the New Mexico at the moment. But it's going to need our big guns to knock him to pieces. Or just a lot of torpedoes. Problem, of course, is US torpedoes, well, they're not great. And here comes the rest of the opposing fleet. So, Fuso is at extreme range. Miyoko's a much better target. Will notch out... No, he won't. What kind of speed's he making? Probably full 30 knots. So, check range on, and he's actually proceeding oblique. So, Kentucky windage here. Fire! Let's see where those go. Probably not even the same postcode, even with scatter, but yeah, there we are. We're going to miss well aft here because of that port turn he made. And I called the range too long as well. Okay, it's 3 on 4 at this point. And I still don't see that blasted Hatsuharu. So, range on estimate for 17.8, allowing for lead. Wait for it to come back, and fire! Let's see if that does any better. Rounds out. Watch fall of shot, get my final repair party going.
Our victory is in sight.
Well short, and we've actually lost target contact. He's gotten out of range. Fine. We'll just close up and hope we can hook up with the New Mexico before they're done knocking us to pieces. Because right now, it's not a good position. We are basically one-shots to a solid broadside, and that New Mexico's in very good condition. Oh yeah, and that Fuso's around as well. Fine, you know what, have we got range for this guy? Yes, I rather think we have.
The enemy team has taken the lead.
Alright, you little sod, come and get it. He's turning for his batteries, and fire! Let's see if that was judged more or less correctly. Alright, it's starting an evasive turn. Come on. Bingo. One hit out of a battery of 10, which at 16 kilometers, 10 miles, isn't too shabby. Now, if I can get a solution on that Miyoko, that's going to be my first target. Anything to minimize the amount of incoming fire that's going our way. Oh, bollocks. This is not good. This is very not good. Thank you for that. Right. Apparently that solves that one. Well, I survived, I suppose. You can accuse me of that, but that was not a good demonstration. 425 experience, dear God. That was appalling. Appalling accuracy. I mean, look at the rest of this. I mean, that's right down in AFK territory. Dear God, right, let's try this again. Hopefully not getting such an appallingly bad matchmake. So here we are, and oh my dear God, this no, just no. Yeah. Mummy. Okay, so tier 8 cruisers, tier 7 battleships, tier 8 battleship, and the Margi on the other team. Okay, right. We'll just load armor piercing and hope for the best. Oh, Lord. I am so gonna die. Alright, guns around to port as before. Basic plan B, and then we'll swing sideways to A. Not really great battleship territory, this map. However, let's get some steerage wave first of all. Yeah, I'm on. Crank up the speed. 10 knots. 11... 12, 13, don't make me break out the smooth jazz here, guys. Okay, so Control X, lock the guns to safe remote. Let's take a look around. So Hatsuharu's running into the gap first to scout. Good little destroyer, that's what they're there for. We've got a Cleveland Pensacola on the right hand side. Looks like the Cleveland's hooking round to join us. Rest of the battleship groups are following, principally the two Nagatos. Nagato? I think it's Nagato, but I'm not entirely sure. And there's the enemy tier 8 cruiser, the Aoba, and he's launched his spotter plane. Oh dear. And we've got Colorado-class battleship, Amagi-class battleship, Pensacola cruiser. You know what? Sod B. Harder starboard, let's come into battle line now. And start praying. Guns off relative. Lay on. Luckily the Colorado is just as slow as we are, so about 6 marks offset. And fire. Detection out. Rounds out. They've got 14-inch coming our way as well. Come on. Full of shot. Full of shot. Clean misses either side, damn it. Okay, reloading. That long, long crawl while they bring the guns up. Nagato, of course, having no such problems. Even 4 kilometers behind me, she's still reaching out and touching a target that's a good 20 kilometers away. Okay.
The enemy team has taken the lead.
Right, so, hold course. In fact, we'll just kink slightly to starboard to avoid that island there. Reacquire the Colorado, except we won't because there's a dirty great island in the way. Fine, so let's lay onto that Pensacola instead. Or we could go for the New York. Pensacola's probably the more vulnerable target at this point. Certainly it's the more dangerous. Okay, what's he maneuvering for? He's turning fine. Later New York. Guns up and fire. Just over 5 mils. Rounds out. Won't be able to observe fall of shot on that one. Think I didn't quite lead enough. Apparently I did. 3 hits on target. 17 kilometers. 3 out of 10's not too shabby, actually. Right, so course a little left. I'm going to have to risk an armor-piercing volley at that destroyer because, let's face it, going to lose my shot otherwise. It's going to take too long to reload, except he smokes, so we've lost the shot anyway. Yeah, man, where are you, little sod? Outrun your own smoke screen. Give me a bearing.
The enemy team has taken the lead.
No such luck. This destroyer captain knows what he's doing. He's cut his speed, which is fairly counter-instinctive in a minikaze, and he's making sure he stays within his own smoke screen. Can't really blame him. He had 3 battleships looking his way and all hungry for torpedo-launching scum. So, gentle to port. Getting a bit too close quarters here for my taste with the battleship, because that minikaze... No, sorry, Mutsuki has got all the time in the world to line up a headland shot, and there we go. There's a lurking Aoba-class cruiser just waiting for someone to blunder around and into his torpedoes. I'm wise to you, you little git. Let's see what happens when you've got proper gunfire coming your way. Okay, he's not moving as yet. 9 kilometers. That's... Okay, there we go. That's persuaded him out. Rounds out. We're at 9 kilometers. Pretty decent range. 2 rounds hit. Did a decent chunk of damage though, but it's going to be another 20 seconds for the reload. There go the Hatsuharu's torpedoes. Fired way too late, mate. Sorry. And we've got aircraft incoming. Dive bombs in this case start turning to frustrate them. Definitely start turning and cut to half speed to frustrate that airdrop. We're going to just about thread them. Luckily for us, someone forced them into a dispersed formation, and it sure as hell wasn't us. Oh, it was the spotter plane. Yay for spotter planes. Shame that they aren't going to be able to do that for much longer. Wargaming have said that's unintentional, and spotter planes will lose their miniature fighter squadron abilities as of 4.1.1. Anyhow, around the corner again. And I should have stayed at half speed. Never mind, we've checked momentum enough that we're only going to sink the 1 torpedo. Just hope to hell it doesn't hit anywhere too vital. Fix the engines. And yes, I know, too hasty with the repair crew. I don't care at this point. Lay on to that New York. Artillery, hello. He's got, I think that's 3 battleships firing at him, plus possibly a cruiser as well. 2 hits, rounds scattered again. Where is that Aoba? He's still lurking, and he's got torpedoes. And we all know what torpedoes do to battleships. Anyhow, hold course just for a second. We're not detected at the moment, so the enemy haven't got TDC bearings on us. They might still scatter shot. They're in a fairly tight formation here. 3 battleships and a cruiser. That's about as juicy a target as you're ever going to get. New York's momentum should force him out in a second. There we go. He's heading straight astern, so we'll give it about 100 meters range. And then give him several of the main guns. He's turning to port, which suits me just fine. Rounds coming down. 4 hits. Not sure what good they actually did, but what the hell, armor piercing's probably the best thing we've got at this range. I think a good chunk of them knocked and deflected. Numbers 1, 2, 4, and 5 turrets coming up in 10 seconds. Another glance round. Clear field of fire. Lay on. Readjust. New York more or less midships on. Give him about 5.5 notches. And rounds out. Load high X. Wait for fall of shot. Dispersion's tolerable. Rounds coming down. 3 hits, another 5,000 damage. Nagato is... yeah, there we go. Nagato got the kill shot. Right, so we are now steadily recapping A. Gentle turn to port to avoid running into Hesser's Nagato. And we can start looking for the next victim. Which the Mogami of Kukentegel has so obligingly found for us. Colorado, extreme range. Could risk a blind shot, but the mountains occluding our line of fire, so I'm not going to. Of course, with high X in the breach, the ideal target would be that Hatsuharu, but frankly at this range it would be a crapshoot as to whether or not I hit him. However, let's see what we get. Lost line on the Hatsuharu for the moment. So, come on. Come on. Where are you? Steaming away, 17.8. He'll be making 21 knots. But you know what? Round scatter might just do the job for us. 17.9. We have detection, which means Hatsuharu's probably cleared the headland by now. Rounds fell short as expected. Well, it was worth a try. Okay, let's keep bearing. Again, reload high X. We'll let the Mogami knock the Colorado to pieces with the range. Meanwhile, we'll stay close. So that destroyer is going to get unmasked at some point, either by our Mutsuki or just by getting too close to us to line up a torpedo run. And when he does, we have the little sod. Okay. Maybe, maybe not. They've lost 1 destroyer. And that was their Mutsuki, so it's just the Hatsuharu left, and he was lurking... yeah, there you go. Destroyer kills silhouettes over by point C, so the Hatsuharu was lurking round by A and B. He is still in the area somewhere. Let's pull out another repair crew. Actually, let's not. And we have a detection. Destroyer in the area. Start your evasives, gentlemen. Destroyer means torpedoes, and from the way we got picked up, I'm willing to bet he's right round this corner. Unfortunately, the uncertainty is enough that I don't really want to fire a battery and be caught short on a reload. So we'll just angle the turn. Amagi goes down. Again, keep angling. I still don't see that Hatsuharu. And our own destroyer ought to have picked him up by now, but something's holding detection on us, and I don't know what. I'm just wondering if he's gone for A. No, he hasn't. There he is. Target ahead. Harder stubble. Get the guns round. Come on, you little sod. Let's see how you like 140 inches of bugger. Okay, no matter. Right, so at this point we can start to throw a cordon around him. So it's holding course. Kukentegel is closing on him again. He's got Zama's Mutsuki closing off his most obvious escape route. And there we go. Rounds out and solid. Fire everything and hope for the best. Decent scatter. Range should be okay. Spread should do the trick. And spread almost did do the trick. Rounds went everywhere but destroyer with battleship guns at more than 10 kilometers, yeah, that's, like I say, a roll of the dice. But torpedoes in the water, couple hit the Mogami, but not enough to do any damage. And Hyderson should hopefully get out of the way. Yeah, there we go, missed well aft. Okay, Zarm gets a devastating strike in, which, yep, that has wiped out the last of the enemy destroyers. There goes another of their cruisers, I believe. Which means we have got 2 cruisers, a battleship, and a carrier to cope with. Switch over to armor piercing, just for general utility's sake. The best thing right now for Hayek's would be the carrier, but we've no idea where that is. And at this rate, we're not going to find him anything. As I said, one of the big problems with the New York, and anything past tier 5, is that it's slow. 21 knots. In fact, I'm only making 19 at the moment because I've just come out of a turn, and, well, the other guys, the cruisers, the destroyers, they're all doing mid-30s and higher. So, yeah, it's a little bit awkward that I can't actually get into a battle at this stage. It's like the fat kid at the back of the school, and I know I've used that comparison before. Oop, we may not be entirely out of it. They just wiped out our New Mexico. So, that gets them a nice little chunk of points, and the game continues. Range on Kongu, who is perhaps sensibly running. Not that I think it's going to do him much good. He's tier 5, same as me. 30 knots, however, he might be able to hold the range open. He can certainly hold the range open on me, that's not in question. But right now, he's got Hyderson's Hatsuharu closing down his escape route. Zarm's Mutsuki is lining up for what looks like a torpedo shot. He's got torpedo bombers incoming as well. Rather a lot of them, in fact. And yeah, I think they're going to be the ones to get the kill, because even with the sheer amount of AA he's got on that boat, he is not going to be able to stop all those torpedo bombers. And there we go. That's the end of it. Torpedoes did the job. Again, a very unimpressive performance, but again, this is useful in a way. It's exposing the New York's big weakness. When you line it up against high-tier cruisers, and in particular high-tier Japanese vessels of any stripe, the sheer lack of speed. I mean, Nagato, Hatsuharu, even Independence, I think, has got almost 10 knots on me. The New York just can't keep up at tier 6, tier 7, tier 8. What time are we at? 38 minutes in. You know what? Let's have another one. I mean, there's a small chance someone's still watching this. Many thanks to you if you are, by the way. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons. It does somewhat help with the demographics and positioning in the search engines. Am I going to get a tier 3 through 5 game? What do you think? Okay, here we go. Match starting, and let's see what the matchmaker gave us. And okay, this is more like it. Mix of tier 3, 4, 5s. Don't pity that St. Louis, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. They're still nasty. That a St. Louis can give a tier 4 cruiser a serious run for its money. But we're a bit more in contention here. So, run up to full power. And initially I think we will keep high explosive in the breaches, just in case we hit a enemy light cruiser or destroyer first. Bear in mind the Omahas, the Phoenixes, they were light cruisers. They were meant as destroyer leaders and scouts in their own right. They were not meant to stand in the line of battle. So, let's run out. I mean, look at this range circle. I could put rounds over and almost hit their starting point from here. That's actually kind of tempting, but it would be a waste of ammo. Anyhow, run south-southwest for a moment. I want to clear that headland with a good few kilometers to spare. Running south to... And there we go. Murmansk is our first catch of the day. The destroyers must have picked him up through the slot at B. That, of course, is going to turn into Torpedo Alley in a couple of minutes, because the enemy destroyers won't be too far behind ours. Wait for the cap to suddenly freeze, depending on what they're doing. Depending on where the enemy destroyers have gone. Come on, there's one. There's an Isokaze. He's just getting into position to block the cap. And there we go. There's the freeze. Isokaze's hit the cap circle. And he's now blocking both Minakaze and the Nicholas. And, of course, the rest of the enemy squadrons are coming up behind. Our destroyers will be well advised to... PDs... perhaps retreat before the rest of their cruisers turn up and mangle you. Trying to force the slot like that is a very, very bad idea. We have acquired an escort. Yay us. We've also been detected, so something's come around, and it's a Phoenix. Remember what I was saying about light armor on this thing? Guns up. He's going to get his first rounds in. Remember, these things are always 30 knots, so we'll zoom up one notch, lay for 10, and broadside. Rounds out. Dispersion is very nice, but he's turned. He saw it coming. And if he hadn't turned, well, that would have been a very different story. However, we're now reloading. Let's turn onto the quarter again. I am still out of range of that Wyoming, but I'd quite like it to stay that way. And the Kawachi, well, that's just a bad joke. Torpedoes in the water. That's going to force another turn from the Phoenix, which suits me just fine, since it's forced him to turn towards me. It means I can continue to extend away from the Wyoming. Guns are coming back, and yeah, he doesn't want to get hit. He knows what these guns can do to his cruiser. So wait for him to make the turn to port and fire. There we go, good grouping, and boomski! Oh yeah! That has got to have been a magazine hit. So, next problem, load to armor piercing. We're going to turn away and then start using the range to just knock these two battleships to pieces. Wyoming is going to be our first concern, because the Kawachi doesn't have the range, doesn't have the speed either, even we outrun him. And in a few seconds, we're going to lose the spot anyway once their own aircraft back off. So, let's open up. Afterguns are coming around first. Armor piercing is loaded. And that's a US battleship, so absolutely appalling speed. Give him 6 barrels, and because he's just coming out of the turn, we should get some pretty satisfying hits. Only the one, though, thanks to that appalling scatter on battleship guns. Meanwhile, enemy torpedo bombers, as before, full reverse, forwards. Get the rudder over. We're going to eat 2, possibly 3. All ahead full again. Yeah, there we go. Fix the engines, fix the flooding. Patch up such of the damage as we can. And now we've got an Omaha coming in. Armor piercing is up. Set high X for the next volley. Give him a broadside. More torpedoes. There's the destroyer round. 7 hits into the Omaha. Cut to half throttle. Get the stern out the way of one. The bow. Are we going to make it? Whew, just cut that one a little close. And somebody else fragged the Omaha while we were thinking about it. Fine. Back onto armor piercing. Another 30 seconds to reload. But high X, well, that wasn't going to do anything more than scratch the Kawachi's paint. Okay, this is more like it. Right, Kawachi is thoroughly engaged. I still want to know what's lobbing those torpedoes. Those were relatively short range, so presumably came from a cruiser. I'm guessing there's a Tenryu lurking, given that there was only the 3 in the water. So lay on about 5 of lead. Armor piercing coming back. Turrets are laid. Rounds out. Turn a little, get the number 2 turret on. There we go, 3 decent hits, and give him the number 2 turret as well. He's turning, so those are probably going to miss 4, maybe? Nope, 1 decent hit into the waterline. Works fine for me. Beowulf's holding the spot at the moment, so are the aircraft. So, again, works for me. We've got all the time in the world to reload the main batteries, get them all onto the Kawachi. Slow target, approximately dead astern. Give him about 500 meters running distance, and fire. Rounds out. Wait for fall of shot, and boomski. And by the sound of it, our fighters are having a field day. Okay, hard over again. Let's bring the guns round. Again, this is going to take time. Armor piercing into the breach because we have that Wyoming as an immediate target. We still don't know what launched those torpedoes. But if it's a destroyer, then he's engaged over to that side. Both their cruisers are gone. I don't think there's anything else besides that destroyer and possibly the enemy bombers that are torpedo capable at this point. So we're in a very nice situation here. I can relax a little. So round this headland onto A and see where we go from there. Enemy fighters coming in. Oh, the poor sods. They now run into our flak. Prioritise them for the AAA, not that there's anything else in range. That's a control and click, by the way. Works if you're targeting secondary guns on the surface vessel as well. Very definitely something to know. And while we're knocking those guys to pieces, or at least scratching their paint, Foxhowl gets another kill in, probably split with Beowulf. We can come around this corner and start thinking about how we're going to murder this Wyoming. Broadside, of course. What else is there for a proper naval officer to do? Meanwhile, the carrier's been found, although by the time we get round there, those two destroyers are going to have had their wicked way with him. In come the fighters again, bag another one, and the last guy, who is presumably trying to remember where he left the spare underwear, now doesn't need to worry about it anymore. So, just about clearing this headland. We'll have bearing on the Wyoming in another 15 seconds or so, assuming he's still afloat. And, well, once we get our main guns into play, that's... Okay, assuming he's still afloat, load high X. And that's the end of that. That's a far more satisfactory round. That's the difference, ladies and gentlemen, between being top tier and being bottom tier in a New York. There we go, 1,321, 4 enemy aircraft kills, 2 admittedly rather lucky capital ship kills. Well, 1 capital ship, 1 cruiser. Do cruisers count as capital ships at this point? Not quite sure. Depended on the squadron, I suppose. But as far as the detailed report goes, 40,000 damage from the armor piercing, another 24,000 from the high X, only scored 3 hits. And 16 penetrations, presumably from the 16 AP battery hits. And what I suspect were magazine detonations, certainly in the case of that Phoenix. Poor sod. As for damage received, well, we ate a couple of torpedoes, and that was what did most of the damage, but we managed to contain the flooding fairly quickly. Never really got seriously engaged, but after 49 minutes, that, I think, is where we're going to leave it. Ladies and gentlemen, the New York. Under the right circumstances, she's one hell of a ship. In the wrong circumstances, she's also one hell of a ship. Until next time, farewell.